Awesome. Thanks, everyone, for joining us bright and early this morning out here in Cannes. We've got a tight 30 minutes and four amazing people on this panel. So we're going to do some quick intros, one question per person, and then we can open it up, do some rapid fire, things of that sort. So today's topic is around building high-performance teams for an MVP world. So as macroeconomic conditions put more pressure on organizations, many marketing leaders are struggling to meet expectations with the talent, technology, operational, and financial challenges they face. To deliver rapid innovation, continual iteration, and consistent business outcomes with efficiency and scale requires a holistic transformation of the business of marketing. So excited to explore this topic today. So maybe to kick things off, would love everyone to just do a quick background on themselves and perhaps also talk about where you are in this journey today.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Billy Seabrook. I'm the Global Chief Design Officer within IBM Consulting. And I effectively lead the design practice, the design mobile and spatial computing practice for the company globally. It's roughly a 7,000-person team divided up between designers, developers, and consultants.
Good morning, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. James Clarke. I'm with PepsiCo Foods North America. Privileged to lead our digital marketing and social media team. That's for Frito-Lay, which is based out in Dallas with Doritos, Lay's, Cheetos, those types of brands, as well as our Quaker Foods business up in Chicago.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Reese Fitzpatrick. I'm the global head of Allergy, cough, cold, pain, and cardio for our consumer health business. It's a really long title. I got to find a better one. Very excited. I have to brag on our agency and team. We won a gold lion on Monday night.
Nice.
Our first one ever for Bayer, so pretty psyched. That was on a Claritin program, so please look up Claritin. We have a really cool botanical sexism story to tell, but that's another panel for another day. Where we are in the journey on digital transformation is I think that we're at the early stages of it, but very important to us, so a great topic for us to talk about today.
And good morning, I'm Liz Caselli-Mechael. I'm based in Switzerland with Nestlé, and I lead communications and digital for the parent brand.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Reese, maybe we could kick things off on your side. I know there's a program that you've implemented, but would love to just understand how marketers balance the need for efficiency with the need for innovation and creativity.
Yeah, it's interesting with digital transformation. There's so much new all the time, and one of the things that we have found at Bayer, at least, is it's really challenging from a culture perspective to get people to be willing to take risks, to be willing to try things and learn things, and the speed of new information is just so high. So we've done two things at Bayer I can share. One, we implemented a sort of a call out of a phrase called safe to try, which we put a hashtag on it in our emails and such. But we have the teams talking about safe to try to create that psychological trust and safety that they can try something new. We can fail. It's okay. We can learn something from it, and then we can move on. And it's something I hear in meetings all the time. It's proposals I get have the hashtag safe to try in an email that says, we'd really like to do this. And that has really helped. I mean, it's something so simple, but the impact on individuals and the team's mentality has been huge. We've been doing it for about 2 years, and it's only gotten stronger and stronger. So that's one thing we've done. The other thing we've done is we implemented Fail and Learn Fridays, where we ask leaders to record themselves just a quick video, like a minute or less, put it out to our team site to say, hey, I did try something. It didn't work. Usually those stories are actually kind of funny and humorous, so they're engaging for the employees. But and then we get a lot of interaction when we post those videos of people saying thank you. So it's all about creating that safety for people to try and learn and advance their learning. So those are a couple things that we've done.
Awesome. No, thanks for that. That's really cool. And the hashtag again that you were using?
Hashtag safe to try.
Awesome. Cool. Liz, how do you manage the impact of a team when you're not directly in charge of it?
I think this is one that's getting increasingly relevant with the structures of big matrix organizations. and is a huge part of managing culture change. I think one thing that Reese and I have in common is also that our company headquarters is Swiss, which can particularly contribute sometimes to a risk aversion or a change aversion. And in such global companies, you're working across a lot of cultures. And so creating an appetite for smart risk-taking, experimentation, can be even more complex when you have so many different kind of cultures in play. The way our team is structured, we have a small team in Switzerland, but we have folks who are doing connected and related and supporting work in 100 countries around the world. I mean, it's really incredible. So I think one thing that we've had to do is around the notion of making things safe to try and safe to drive progress is that we've also had to really recognize ceding our own control. And when we look at work that's maybe not what we would necessarily directly encourage in a market, we have to really interrogate, like, does this actually warrant stepping in, becoming, party of no? And let markets also have their own experimentation and recognize that we don't understand every audience in every market. So a lot of what we do with our local markets is around giving them more of a community and more of a best practice resource where they can share out their own learnings. Many folks who are sitting in our markets may be the only digital person working on parent brand in their market. They may not have any peers that they get to run things by. So we want to build a community where they can connect to peers in other countries, even if it's a really different environment. So additionally, we'll look to really do innovative pilots with 1 or 2 countries at once, that then the learnings from that can be packaged out to everybody. But I think it has a lot to do with making peace with letting go of control and doing the best that you can to make more available, make people feel like they're getting the best growth support, information, exploration together in a community. But to not set the standard for yourself or your markets, that the idea is that everything's perfectly uniform or everything follows exactly what you know to be right, really, really opening up to letting folks lead from the markets, supporting what they're doing, and creating a real sense of trust so that on the rare occasion that we need to come in and say, look, this is one that we're really going to have to do together. We're going to have to do it in a very specific way. They know that it's not a power struggle. It's because the vast majority of the time we let them drive, and there's a really good reason, if there's a reason that we need to kind of disrupt our usual way of working.
Got it. That's really interesting. Is it hard to normalize success or judge success across different markets?
Oh, absolutely. And of course, you also, I love the Fail Friday piece of this, because part of the problem is you don't get that much firsthand knowledge in 100 different countries. You have to trust how things are being shared. There's a really strong incentive to always share how everything was so successful. Everything was a great achievement, and here are the pretty screen caps, as opposed to getting towards what indicators are you using for impact, and really praising people who are willing to show, some good steps and some things they need to further improve. Make that the spotlight and really celebrate that, because otherwise all you will get is theoretical win after theoretical win, where you can't necessarily pull out which of these are driving success, which of these are driving impact, what should we be replicating, because there's just such an incentive to give everything a round of applause.
Got it. Cool. No, thank you. James, maybe you could talk a little bit about strategies that people can use to deliver consistent business outcomes, even with operational and financial challenges.
Totally. I mean, always a challenge, right? But I think we're always, as marketers, looking at trying to do more with less in this world. So I'd say, like, outside of the basics of a focus on digitalization, which is a multi-year journey and focus for us at PepsiCo, there's also we've seen a significant benefit through in-housing. So we kind of take a bit of a hybrid approach to that, right? We don't in-house everything. But we selectively decide, hey, where's it going to make the most sense? Where are we going to unlock the most benefits from that? And through in-housing, typically we see on average around a 30% savings versus working externally. And that obviously varies by project and by brand. So there's significant financial incentive to do that. But then I'd say even more powerfully has been, this notion of unlocking increased collaboration, right? We have teams embedded sitting in the same areas in the office. We're back to hybrid, so we're in the office a few times a week. People are showing up, which is very promising. And so having folks together, brainstorming together, it's literally the hallway conversations, right? Or, someone from our in-house agency team can simply just walk down the hall, have a chat with the brand lead versus it becoming a bureaucratic affair or anything that, is having to go through multiple layers and checks. And also as part of in-housing, honestly, something as simple as, having more dedicated legal resources and comms resources. So again, we're able to mitigate risk, especially in a volatile environment, but we're still able to deliver on, the strategy of, being agile, moving at the speed of culture, all of those, standard buzzwords. But we've really tried to not just talk the talk, but also walk the walk as well through our structure to be able to actually enable that.
Got it. Oh, thanks. It's great. I think motivating people to come back to the office is another topic on its own as well. Billy, maybe you can help share some of the best practices for building and maintaining a marketing and design organization built for the MVP world.
Sure. A little bit of history for you around IBM. For those who don't know, I'll talk from a design perspective primarily, but there's design has always been in the DNA of the IBM brand for decades. So if you think back to like the mid-century, it was you had some real design luminaries that were part of the brand, whether it's the Eames, for example, or Paul Rand, some of these and famous architects, Ara Sarin and things like that. People like that helped build the design program for IBM. But in the turn of the century, we noticed that there was a sort of a reduction in how design and human-centered design was being applied to the software that we were building and our client engagements. We actually noticed a noticeable decline that we weren't as human-centric as we could be, and the collaboration across the huge distributed teams wasn't as good as it could be, wasn't as efficient, and we weren't using standard tools and standard methods and practices. So about 10 years ago, we embarked on a massive change management journey to try to bring human-centered design back into the fold. And a little bit of a stat, when we looked at our staffing mixes on software development, for example, we had a 1:64 ratio of designer to developer. So you can so you can understand how developers were, and this is I don't want to kick the developers, but they were making important user-centric design decisions on their own, and they were very sort of they weren't really human-centered. They weren't thinking about what the end user really needs. So we set on a mission to change that dynamic and get to ultimately a 1:8 ratio. We're not there yet, but that's the plan, is to kind of fix that mix. So we really thought about our people. That would be like the first pillar of our framework that in terms of our transformation. And then if you're going to bring in all those new designers, what's the career path for them? How are you going to enable them? How are you going to train them so they feel that they have got a career path and what have you? But then we thought about, okay, well, there's got to be a way to democratize design to make everybody feel part of the solution. So we introduced design thinking at scale. So for our methods and practices, built our own enterprise design thinking framework with badging that we've now scaled to over 500,000 people around the world. And that really, again, created a shared purpose amongst the team and some standardized frameworks and tools so you can actually work faster and more collaboratively. And then the third sort of component of our framework was around places, so people, practices, and places. And the places at the time was really about physical locations. So we built hundreds of studios around the world with maker spaces, collaborative spaces where you could conduct design thinking and really work and see the work on the wall and bring customers in and end users into the process. We also thought about the tooling that would be necessary for that type of workflow. And then you fast forward to post-pandemic, you've realized that we had to completely turn that into a hybrid digital type of place, digital works. And so we did all the work to sort of basically translate our ways of working into the digital realm with video conferencing, what have you, whiteboarding. But that transition and thinking about it in those three pillars of people, practices, and places has helped us basically unify everyone around a shared purpose with standard tools, clear training and guidance to help build better experiences, and which is ultimately the outcome. If you add those three things together and you do it correctly, you're going to get great business outcomes. And we've seen that in our own products, and we've seen that working with clients as well.
Awesome. I really like the people, process, and platform pillars. I think it's important to think about. Maybe we can just talk through some different questions within that area. Either Liz or Reese. Maybe you could talk about how important it is to upskill and in reskilling for marketing teams right now?
Yeah, I think one thing that really resonated with me was thinking about when you start to bring different kinds of functions in-house, particularly creative, or to scale them up, needing the thought process about what does that mean for the culture you're creating, the career paths, the opportunities. And I think that's an ongoing journey for even our individual team, is to make sure that if you're bringing in talent that maybe you never thought they would work for a big corporation, and you've somehow gotten them to take the chance on you and come along to change a little bit of how you're working, can you actually make them feel supported and inspired and like they can build a longer term career? Because it can be tough to go to being one of a much smaller set who works like you in an environment that's not the environment that you're used to. And so I think that's an incredibly compelling one, and something that we try to do on a small scale even is to do a lot of like peer learning, peer training, so that when we bring in creative staff, that they're actually leading cross-functional staff in more like creative brainstorming and ideation exercises, and they're leading the road to approach that differently and building those skills in their peers. And at the same time, they're sitting in and getting like a crash course in what our digital analytics look like and how we look at the creative they're producing when it's running to our audience. And I think that's something that can be more enriching for them than if they were sitting in a small creative pod on the outside, and hopefully can be something where they also get to take a different kind of leadership to deliver that cross-functionally in the organization. But it's a journey, because there's a reason that it's been a lot of years that they haven't come inside a big corporation, and some of that stuff will butt up against each other.
Yeah, I see the same thing for us as well. We've definitely changed like who we look for and how we hire. We've tried to bring in people from tech companies. We've tried to bring in more entrepreneurs, like people who've done startups that are now looking to get into corporate. That's brought a level of new thinking that I've really appreciated. The other thing that we're doing, we have a partnership with IMD Academy to do heavy digital training for all of our employees, but maybe most importantly, to do it for the senior leadership that are further away from being digital natives, so that they can understand what's happening with the business and with the folks that are closer to it, and the commitment level to that's been incredible, and we've seen, I think, better conversations as a result during our digital transformation.
Got it.
Just a quick build, if I might. I would say for us as well, in the upskilling process, certainly dealing with maybe some topics that are outside of people's comfort zone when you're thinking more broadly in the organization and getting people educated on what's new or what's upcoming, I would say is something so fundamental, right? But I think those are the things that tend to often get overlooked, is this notion of repetition is your friend. I'm constantly saying that to my team. I'm like, we need surround sound, right? So, I'll often get back from my team, well, we just did a training. When did we do that? Well, it was 8 months ago. How many new people have onboarded in that 8-month period, right? And how intensely have they been scrutinizing the onboarding documents? I mean, one can only wonder, right?
We're digital teams. We're supposed to love frequency.
Exactly. So similar to how we, market to consumers, we have to, I think, recognize this notion of it's human centricity, not just applicable to our external marketing, right? But upskilling and educating staff is a marketing exercise in and of itself, right? Because you really want to drive that followership, that adoption you were talking about. So again, it's that repetition is your friend, and making sure you're delivering that message very concisely, but in multiple places, right? So you're giving them enough depth, but not too much. And then you're also, surround sound so that depending on how someone learns, right, they have that opportunity to digest it in a way that's most impactful and meaningful for them.
If I could build on that too.
Yeah,
Sure. I love what you were saying there. We say internally a lot at IBM and with our clients too that a great employee experience will lead to a great customer experience, and it's really, they go hand in hand. So we focus a lot on the employee enablement at the end of the day, and that could be, again, using that framework that I described, but it is giving them the training that they need and the tooling and different sort of access to software accelerators to actually improve the velocity of the work and make them have that psychological safety that you were describing too, so they feel comfortable and they know their purpose and they're fully equipped to do it. Because if they're fully equipped, then they're going to be able to deliver it. If they're having a great experience, they're going to be able to deliver that to their clients as well. So.
And then you repeat it many times
And
because
repetition is important. Yeah.
repetition is your friend.
Repetition is your friend. Yeah. Yeah, especially with a large organization, the turnover of talent and the new talent that comes in is so frequent that you constantly have to have that beat, that rhythm. Don't underestimate that.
Yeah, one thing that we've helped brands do as well, thinking about just educating the team is you think about creators and influencers, and typically it's very much outward facing, right? Like they're talking to their audience, but we've created these creator advisory boards where you can talk to creators once a quarter, every 5 or 6 creators, and you can use that either for messaging, creative strategy, or just even thinking about the channel itself and how it's evolving, because it takes so much to just stay on top of those trends and just identify what it is, and it's sort of really effective. I think another question for the group is how can marketing teams effectively communicate their value to the rest of the organization during times of financial stress?
Oh, go ahead. No, please go ahead.
Well, I have the exact answer for that. No, I'm just kidding. For us, it's interesting. Our global marketing group, which is what I'm in, is essentially responsible for the 2 to 5 year horizon of the business, while the countries are responsible for the 0 to 2 year horizon. So our ultimate delivery is market share gains. Those are really driven by the markets, but honestly, in times like this, we've been asked to sort of, from a global perspective, to get our hands more into the 0 to 2 years to ensure that we're doing everything we can to push the business forward in a difficult time. So the thing I get concerned about is that if we are, as a group, supposed to be the long-term strategic compass of the organization, do we compromise that by focusing on the short term in a time where, financial times are difficult? I suppose the answer to that is we'll see. But right now we are trying to show our value from a global marketing perspective team by getting our hands dirty with the countries to ensure that we have the best possible plans to drive the gains that we are looking for.
I can add a quick build. I would say as well for us, it's always helpful to provide as much context as possible, right? So helping bring people along in that journey and help them understand, what is that longer term vision, right? What's happening in the environment? How is the organization responding and reacting to that? But then, helping demystify and explain as much of the whys as one possibly can, right? Because that's gonna, really help ensure that your employees aren't viewing those leadership decisions as happening in a black box, right? Or something that's, opaque and, they're just not necessarily understanding the motivators behind it, right? So I think it's critical to have that longer term outlook, right? Have that long-term strategy, remain agile to be able to pivot as you move forward and different circumstances are coming forward, but as well just not to neglect the fact that, there is a duty of care to bring everyone along on that journey, regardless of their role, right? Every associate deserves to, understand where the organization's headed and how they fit into that picture. So I think communication is a necessary ingredient for sure.
I think as well, I've seen our insights team do a really amazing job on showing the longer term costs of neglecting brand building in the short term and how much more it costs you to dig out of that hole. And that's probably exactly the term I mean. If you neglect for a year, for 2 years, how long it takes you to rebuild that brand and how much more costly it is over time. Now, I've heard from colleagues since being here, even that's not working on my CFO anymore. So I don't pretend that there's a data silver bullet to having that conversation. I would say the other thing that's been really interesting in our business is that is we see that being something that investors are calling for, to say, we understand there was financial pressure and you backed off on this kind of spend. We want to see you investing in building brands. And when you get that from investors, that is kind of the silver bullet. There will be nothing that more quickly gets your leadership team on board with that agenda. And so I think that has been a really positive conversation in the organization to say, we have this opportunity to build back. let's do it in a way that's smarter, modernized. Like, this is a chance for us to set a new course rather than think we're just going to replicate what we did a couple of years ago. And so that has been an incredibly helpful spark for going in new directions in marketing and communications.
I could add just one thought to that too. As you can imagine, IBM's pretty focused on measurement, and measuring data. And so when we think about, driving effectiveness of work or sort of proving that, we actually start with what the intended outcomes are first. It's almost like the first thing that we talk about when starting a project, and define what those KPIs are, those business metrics that we're going after. And we sort of shift that left into the very early stages of the design process. So we create what we call value trees, where you basically work out all the KPIs that you're going after, and then we do what we call value orchestration, where we think about all the different levers we can pull to make those experiences come to life properly and drive those business results. But that's actually done in very early design stages, and we use that as almost a mechanism to validate that we're going to build the right MVPs, we're going to put the right experiences out there, because we've done sort of the analytics of the predicted benefits, and that really helps sell in and socialize those concepts with the stakeholders, because you're de-risking all of that innovation. You're sort of really laying it out from a very practical, business first kind of mindset, and not guessing, saying, oh, trust us, this experience is going to be great. You can actually sort of start to de-risk that up front.
Awesome. I know we're right at time, and I know maybe if we could just do one quick piece of advice for everyone. We could start with Liz, and you can make your way down the street to your next talk as well.
I feel like since I get to go first, I'm going to kind of have to skip Reese, and I'm going to say make a safe environment for risk-taking, reward risk-taking, celebrate learnings. There will be nothing stronger in a culture than that.
Yeah, I would add to that, just keep the growth mindset. I'm constantly encouraging my teams to we're on a learning journey. Keep a growth mindset. Like you said, the funny we took that training 8 months ago. Man, 8 months ago is a long time in this environment. So learn and grow and keep that spirit.
I will default to repetition is your friend, but also I think the cliche of communication is key, right? And don't assume that people know what you're talking about. Don't assume that everyone's on the same page, right? So I think the more you can simplify and then communicate that in a multitude of ways and repeat it, right, without being, obviously obnoxious, but those have been hugely powerful things for us at PepsiCo.
And I would just say, as workflow is accelerating so much now, and the expectations are now, obviously the big topic this week has been generative AI and what that's going to do for the content supply chain, if you will, or just overall workflows are going to get so accelerated, and the velocity, the risk there, one of the risks there is human burnout. Can the humans keep up with the pace of the technology and the rhythms of doing work, and having the proper moment to sit back and reflect on the work, make sure you're doing the right decisions, and not just let the technology run away with itself. So thinking about that, and then the human, back to the psychological safety, making sure that people are adjusting to this new way of work in a proper, healthy way. So really, again, spending the time to think about your design operations, your dev operations, to make sure that there's a really good foundation, will help people accelerate with the new capabilities.
Awesome, cool. No, thanks so much for that, and thanks for thanks for all the amazing advice. Appreciate it. Let's give everyone a round of applause.